In this episode of the How to Do Your 20s podcast, we're going to be talking about how to have energy all day long, losing weight, health, fitness, all that kind of fun stuff that I know everyone that listens to this podcast loves. So first off, Yuri, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's good to be here, Travis. Thanks for having me.
So tell me, what's your story? How did you get involved in this? How did you go down this path?
I'll make the long story short.
Yeah.
So basically, when I was young, I felt that I was good enough to play pro soccer, or that was kind of the delusional thought that I had. So I'm talking about like 10 years old. So I was like, I'm going to do this. So I committed the next 10 years to make that happen. And I was lucky enough to do that for a number of years in my early 20s. And during that time, I was very active and fit, but I was silently unhealthy. So by that, I mean I had a lot of digestive issues, asthma, eczema, very low energy. And those were all warning signs for my body saying, hey, you should kind of like do something about this. But I didn't know better at the time. So I just, suppressed it and ignored it. And eventually, when I was just about 17 years old, my body sent me a tidal wave of a warning sign, which was basically attacking my hair follicles. So I lost all of my hair in the space of 6 weeks to an autoimmune condition called alopecia. And at the time, I was like, what's going on? How's this happening? I have no idea. And it was interesting because I was in my last year of high school, and my dad is Moroccan, just to give you some context. So I had a lot of hair before that. And in the space of, again, 6 weeks, I lost all the hair on my head, eyelashes, eyebrows, the whole bit. And I didn't really understand what was going on. So that really kind of put me on a path to figuring out my own health issues to fix them. And that's kind of the path that I went down over the next 10 years because I was still committed to playing soccer professionally, which I did. During that time, I was pursuing, or before that, I actually pursued studies in kinesiology and health sciences, but I still had no clue about how to eat well. And, growing up, to give you some context, I was terrible diet, like hot dogs, grilled cheese sandwiches, shreddies with 2 tablespoons of sugar on top, like just daily, like just nonsense. So never, ever really eating good quality, clean foods. Not until my mid-20s, when I came back after I was playing professionally in France, I came back after retiring and went into school to study holistic nutrition. And that was a big eye-opening experience for me. And as a result of what I was learning, I was able to very quickly make some simple changes in my diet to have a lot more energy very quickly. All my digestive issues, the asthma, the eczema all went away, and my hair started to regrow. In the space of 2 months, I actually regrew most of my hair, still kept my head shaved because I'd been that way for about 10 years, so it's kind of my claim to fame. And I was like, holy cow, this is crazy. So I was just on a mission to really share what I was learning with more people. And I was also working one-on-one with clients as a trainer and nutritionist at the time. And I just got tired of doing that. And I knew that I wanted to impact more people. So eventually I started my online business, had no idea what I was doing for the first couple of years, but eventually cracked the code, and we've been able to help 500,000 people since. And, I've written 3 published books, one's a New York Times bestseller. So it's been a pretty cool ride. But I tell people, I'm like, listen, if I hadn't had those health issues, I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. So yeah, that's kind of what I do and why I do it.
Wow. Okay. So there's a lot of things I want to dig into here.
Yeah.
First off, let's start with the hair loss at 17. Was it just purely your diet was so bad that it happened, or is it also, I mean, I guess there has to be some kind of a genetic component as well, or how'd that happen?
So that was the $1 million question. So I went to like every medical doctor and a lot of alternative doctors that I could possibly find, and I don't even know why I'm not even sure why I didn't get a good answer, because there's a lot of people who know about autoimmunity now, and the answers are pretty straightforward. At the time, I didn't really understand what was going on, but looking back, I think there's a multitude of factors. I think my diet was just over time was just so bad that it just polluted my body. So my body was like a garbage can. And I think a couple other factors were that I was fully vaccinated when I was young, like the whole gamut. And I think in some people that is obviously, the body reacts a little more strongly than others. So I think that was part of it. I was also I just remember having I think it was amoxicillin or some antibiotic, that like liquid banana one in my fridge, like all the time. So I had my dose and then some of antibiotics when I was growing up. And I think all of that stuff combined, including like daily canned tuna, which is just the mercury onslaught on my body, I think all of that combined just created this perfect storm of just junk that my body couldn't deal with anymore. And it just kind of turned my immune system to go haywire. So yeah, so that's kind of what I've pieced together. And obviously each one of those elements has a cascade of events inside the body that can manifest itself in different ways. For me, it was hair loss.
Gotcha. Okay, and so talk about. Let me ask you, what is the diet that you follow now, or the all-day energy diet? Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. I mean, I think the power is in its simplicity. And the basic premise is basically eat more plant-based foods, more of them in your raw states, more of them in their raw states, right? And very similar to Michael Pollan's belief system with the work that he's done. But the whole premise is like my health really transformed very quickly when I started to understand the power of what foods can do. And I was a big believer, based on the stuff that I was learning, of this whole notion of pH balance in the body and specifically within the blood. And sadly, it's not, massively supported by empirical literature. And not to say that, if it's a, clinical study, then it's obviously 100% gold standard, because we know a lot of that stuff is flawed and heavily influenced. But I said, listen, I'm very interested in what works. I'm also interested in what is backed by science. But at the end of the day, if I had to choose one or the other, I would go with what works, even if it's not backed by science to the fullest extent. So for me, I started to realize the power of really alkalizing the body, getting a lot more greens in, green juices, green smoothies, green salads, green vegetables, and just more plant-based foods. And when you get more of those foods in, you're getting more micronutrients, more phytonutrients, all the important nutrients that so many of us are deficient in because we're not eating enough plant-based foods, more fruits and vegetables on a daily basis. So that was the first thing. The second thing was eating more of them in their raw state. I actually went raw vegan for, I think, 4 months way back in the day. And I felt like I was like floating all the time. Like I've never experienced that much energy. It was crazy. And I started to look into why is it that raw foods do this? And again, raw foods, very controversial in terms of like presenting the science behind that stuff. But again, you can't dispute how you feel and how you look. I mean, you can see in someone's skin if they're eating a raw food diet. Like you can just point them out at a crowd. And so I started to look into this. I'm like, well, what's the research? What's the science here? Why is this stuff happening? I started to realize the power of food enzymes. So these are enzymes inherent in foods that help your body digest those very foods. And I was like, okay, that's pretty cool, interesting stuff. Started to understand, well, when you cook a food, you dehydrate the food pretty much, right? Think about cooking a hamburger on the barbecue, right? It starts off as this nice big patty. It ends up as a smaller grilled down version. That's because it's lost a lot of its water. So when we cook food, we lose a lot of the minerals, we lose a lot of the vitamins, we destroy the inherent food enzymes, which are so important for the vitality of our body and the digestion of those foods, and we lose a lot of the water in that food. And then the other component, which is, again, completely on the fringe, is this idea of life force. We all know that there's this kind of, I really believe that the invisible is more powerful than the visible. And there are things we can't see that just because we can't see them doesn't mean that they're not real, right? Just because we can't validate something now doesn't mean it's not real. It's just, that's the difference between science and magic, if you will. So I started to do some interesting investigation into the life force of foods and found some really cool photography known as Kirlian photography that shows the life force emanating off foods. And you can see comparison pictures between steamed broccoli and raw broccoli. And it's like day and night. And it's like, how do you refute that? So I started to piece all this stuff together, and I'm like, this just makes sense. So nowadays, I'm not a raw foodist. I've never been really like a hardcore raw foodist. My proposition to people is basically eat more real food, more of it plant-based. And if you can get more of that stuff in its raw form, you're going to benefit from all the stuff I just mentioned.
So nowadays, do you eat any meat or completely eliminated meat?
No, totally. I love meat. I love ribs, burgers, all that good stuff. But I'm very conscious of the fact that I don't do that 3 times a day, 7 days a week. And I'm aware of the fact that when you're eating foods like that, they're very acid forming. They're very hard on the body, digestively, as well as the acid that they give off into the body. So what we want to do is we want to understand that our body wants to be, for the most part, alkaline. And our diet, for the most part, is a little bit too acidic, the standard American diet. So if you're having a burger, if you're having some meat, just balance it out with a great portion of veggies or a salad. And we don't really need as much meat as we tend to get served. I mean, you go to a restaurant and it's like, here's a tomahawk steak, and it's bigger than the tennis racket I have at home. I'm like, we don't need that much meat, right? The size of your palm, the thickness of of a deck of cards, that's pretty much what you need. And other than that, it's just way too much on the body. So you want to, if you're having meats or if you're having, anything that's a little more acidic, like grains, balance that out with a lot of good veggies. And that's a really simple way of keeping things in check.
Can you walk us through what a normal day in, like, obviously, let's assume you're not going too far off, because I'm sure you have your cheat days just like everyone else does, but what would a normal day of this kind of a diet look like? Breakfast, lunch, dinner?
Yeah, so this morning, basically I made a berry smoothie. So it was a ton of berries. I've got 3 young boys, so smoothies always work well in the mornings. So berries, a full can of coconut cream, it's like the good full fat stuff, flax seeds, hemp seeds, some vanilla protein powder, water, and collagen protein. I think that's everything. Blend it up, and there's a smoothie. I mean, that's all I've had. I'm still running on what I had for breakfast 6 hours ago now, 5 hours ago. So just, good amount of protein, good amount of fiber, good amount of healthy fat just to keep me going. So I typically am very busy during the day just because I've got my kids at school from 9 to 3. So I'm like focus time. And so I tend not to eat because I'm like, that's time that's going to take away from my work or other stuff. So I don't really have to. And that's the beautiful thing about starting off the day with something substantial, but also very nutritious, is that it keeps you going for longer. So I typically have, if I'm in the mood, I'll have breakfast. A lot of days my breakfast is at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, which flies in the face of convention because you don't have to be having breakfast if you're not hungry. You'll be fine. So I typically have breakfast and then dinner. And then dinner is, usually we'll usually have a big salad, some kind of steamed greens, and maybe a piece of meat, maybe some pasta, maybe maybe something else. So like last night we had, what did we have? We had butternut squash soup with a big green salad, and then we had some Montreal smoked meat. We actually had a Montreal smoked meat sandwich, which was a nice little treat. So I love food. I consider myself a healthy foodie. So I definitely don't deprive myself. If I want to indulge in something, I will. But obviously, I'll try to make a healthier choice where possible. But for the most part, that's kind of what it looks like. During the day, I usually drink a liter of green juice. So I'll have 2 bottles of fresh pressed green juices. And that's going to give me just a huge IV influx of nutrients that bypass the digestive system altogether. And that's kind of a really nice nutritional safety net as a baseline. And it's kind of as simple as that. I don't like spending a lot of time in the kitchen as much as I love making food and enjoying food. I don't like spending all day in the kitchen. So for me, it's really like friction free and tasty. So yeah.
The green juices, do you press them yourself or do you buy them in the store?
I used to press them myself. And then about a year ago, I spent like 3 hours juicing for the entire week on a Saturday morning. And I was like, what the hell am I doing? This is a waste of time, because the juice is not even as good as what you could get from a juice bar that fresh presses or cold presses fresh, awesome juice. And I'm like, it's not worth my time. It's really not. So basically now we've got some amazing local delivery options in Toronto. So I basically have 12 to 14 juices delivered to my house once a week, and I just plow through those all week. It's awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome. That's part of the reason I was asking. I was curious if there was a certain brand, but it sounds like maybe going local is the way to do it. Finding a local place that'll do it for you.
I guess in the States, there's national brands that deliver across the country. In Toronto, we don't have access to a bunch of those. So we've got some really good local juice bars that deliver like right to your house. You can order at 10 o'clock the night before. It'll be at your house like the next morning at 3 in the morning.
Wow.
So it's pretty awesome.
That is really awesome. So when people are trying to follow this kind of a diet, what are some of the common mistakes you see people making repeatedly?
I think the biggest mistake is just this obsession with being perfect. That's the biggest thing. Doesn't matter if it's this one or anyone else. It's just like being too hard on yourself. oh my God, I didn't have a green salad for dinner. Oh dear, like it's over. No, no, just let it go. Or I had a bit of a cheat meal. I was out with some friends. Who cares? Just enjoy it. Don't feel guilty about it because that's even worse than the food you just ate. Just enjoy it and move on the next day. So I think that is the biggest thing that I continue to see. And hopefully, people can start getting the message that, like, I really believe that the energy you put into the food is more impactful than the food itself. So if you're going to McDonald's, love that stuff up. Like, just love it up. Just enjoy it, guilt-free, be there present, just be with it. As opposed to going to McDonald's and be like, hum nom nom nom, oh my God, I feel so terrible about myself reading this. I'll have another burger instead. That's a very, very bad position to be in, psychologically, but also energetically with the food. So just be okay with what you're eating and then move on. Just try to make every day a little bit better, and that's it.
That's something I've actually actively been working on is because I live in Santa Monica, California now, which has got a lot of really great food and not all of it is always super healthy, but I want to
Hmm.
enjoy it. And I want to, when I go out, so I've been really trying to be like, all right, sure, this is not the healthiest thing I can eat, but let's really enjoy it. And then, later today or tomorrow, I'll go back to healthy lifestyle me.
Yeah, totally. Just like, that was one of the reasons that I stopped the raw vegan thing was that, yes, the food is great. I felt awesome, but I enjoy life a little bit too much to to be confined to like one or two restaurants that are not even conveniently located to where I live. And Toronto is an amazing city, as Santa Monica is for restaurants and food options. And you can get some, you can have your occasional, you know, run of the mill kind of gourmet burgers, or you can find restaurants that have, great healthy local food. So, I don't think it's, again, everyone leads their own life. Everyone's on their own journey. You have to do what's right for you and just be okay with the whole process.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I've found that basically the extra energy I get from going out with a friend to a cool new restaurant and whatever is more than makes up for the slightly, and most of the stuff around here is pretty healthy, so it's might not be the perfect healthy thing that I usually eat, but that whole experience just adds to my dopamine and my excitement, and it's just the next day I feel almost more refreshed. I'm like, oh, I had this really cool experience. So
Yeah,
yes,
totally.
totally agree with you. One of your missions that you're on is to empower 10 million people to greater health by 2018. Can you talk a little bit about this mission?
Yeah, so I'm I don't know why I chose 10 million. To be honest, I think everyone was just talking like everyone's goals are like I'm going to help a million people. So I'm like, oh, let's just go for 10. So there's really no rhyme or reason for the number, but I just want to impact a lot of people. And I mean, I really believe that we're not taught anything in school that is really applicable to life. To be very honest with you, I mean, I'm very fortunate that I went through a university degree that I still actually use to this day, which is like very uncommon. And prior to that, if you're in school from like I look at my kids that are in kindergarten, and I'm thinking, wow, if I were to develop a curriculum, I would be teaching kids from a very young age about financial health, emotional intelligence, and nutrition and fitness, and just health in general. Everything else is like it's irrelevant. I mean, robots are gonna be doing most of the stuff anyways that we learn in math or science. So, anyways, I'm going off on a tangent. But what I want to do with my business and my work is to really empower people with knowledge and wisdom that is more than just information. And that's why I really enjoy teaching people how to fish as opposed to just giving them the fish. But I also realize that most people just want the damn fish. Most people would rather win the lottery than work their butt off for a decade to become a millionaire. And that's just the reality of human nature. And so, with both those in mind, we try to develop information and programs and offers that kind of cater to both. But at the end of the day, if we can move somebody from 50 pounds overweight to an ideal weight, or help them eat better or just become more active, that's what I'm on, like, on a mission to do. And really, I think the core of it is really to end suffering, because obviously I suffered with my own health for a long period of time, and I've seen a bunch of family members in similar situations. And I just, it sucks when people are living a life that is subpar because of ill health. And if I can do my part in helping them, see the light in some way, shape, or form, then that's what I'm here to do.
And something that I'm really interested in, and I think a lot of the listeners are interested in, is your journey into being able to help all these people and how you've done this and how you've created a business about something you're so passionate about. How exactly did that get started? Because it's one thing to be able to fix yourself, but it's a very different thing to be able to help and fix so many other people.
Yeah, it's funny because I actually have a second company called Healthpreneur, which is all about helping other health entrepreneurs turn their expertise into a thriving online business so that we can collectively help more people. And so that's where I spend a lot of my time now, is actually teaching more of the marketing and entrepreneurship stuff, because that's really the most impactful stuff, I believe, in the long term. The reason I'm in a position to be able to share that stuff now is that I've had, over the last 11 years online, I've made a lot of mistakes and I've had a lot of successes. But previous to coming online, I was working as a trainer 16 hours a day, seeing clients as a trainer and nutritionist. And I also worked as a head strength and conditioning coach at the University of Toronto. So between the two, I was like barely ever home. And I was in my mid-20s at the time. And I'm thinking to myself, like, man, like, this is not the life I want to live, especially when I've got a family. So I just kind of put out the intention. I'm like, I don't know what this is going to look like, but I just want to have a lot more time freedom. I want to have a lot more money. And I don't want to be like, I want to choose what I want to do, when I do it, where I do it, who I do it with. I don't want to be confined to meeting somebody all the time at a specific time during the day and being limited by that one-on-one setting. So I was working with a coach at the time who, this is like just when the internet was becoming a bit more popular. This is back like just after dial-up pretty much. So he recommended, like, hey, why don't you just set up a website or something? I was like, okay, sure. I'm like, I don't know, let's see how we do that. Had no idea what to do. We set up a really ghetto-looking website. I think it actually still exists somewhere. But that was kind of the initial thing online. And I was also working with a client who said something really amazing to me one day. He's like, he's working out, doing step-ups, like out of breath. And he's like, Yuri, you should put your voice on tape. And I'm like, that is a good idea. This is just after the iPod had been released for the first time. And I was thinking, the biggest dilemma for me is that 90% of the people that I have consults with don't work with me because they can't afford it or whatever. So they go off on their own and they do their thing and they don't achieve the results they want because they're doing it on their own. And then there's those who work with me or work with a trainer or a coach and get the results that they want because they have a coach. So what I decided to do was like, well, what if I bridge the gap? What if I could be the happy medium and provide people a coach, a virtual coach on their headphones, wherever they want, whenever they want? And so my first product was a bunch of follow-along workouts on your iPod. So it was me on your headphones, walking you through the workout, step by step, telling you what to do, motivating you the whole time. And it was like having me as your virtual trainer. And it was awesome. Like it served so many people so well, and it still does. And that was my first product online because at the time, everyone else was just doing ebooks. And I'm like, I'm not going to come out with an ebook and just have pictures to show people what to do in the gym. That's not really motivating. And so I decided to do something different, something unique, and put it out there. But the big dilemma, as pretty much any entrepreneur will know, is that it doesn't matter how great your product is. If you don't know how to market it, it's not going to do well. And that was the dilemma that I had for the first 3 years in my online business. Was I had no idea how to market properly. And I was still wearing the hat of a health fitness expert. I was not wearing the hat yet of CEO, entrepreneur, marketer. And I made that transition, swiftly after that, because I realized I'm like, what I'm doing is good. I'm putting out good stuff, but no one knows about it. So let me learn about copywriting. Let me learn more about funnels. Let me learn more about how to get in front of more people online, how to market my stuff more effectively. And as a result of all that, we've tested thousands of things. A lot of them have failed. As a result of that, I've learned what works, what doesn't, at least based on my journey and the stuff we've worked on. And I've acquired a lot of wisdom and insight that I'm able to share with other people now. And we've had a lot of success. I mean, we've built a multiple seven-figure business that is doubled in size pretty much every year. And, that doesn't happen by just being be like a good fitness expert or a good nutritionist, because there's a lot of amazing ones out there, but they have no idea how to get their message out there. So I've really deconstructed a lot of the frameworks and processes that we've used to build our business. And now I'm able to teach that to other people to help them avoid a lot of the mistakes that I made, avoid a lot of the potholes, and to really give them faster results instead of taking it, like a decade, like it took me pretty much.
This stuff is fascinating to me. As we kind of talked about before, marketing and all that kind of stuff is just so extremely interesting because you're right. You could have a great product, but it doesn't really matter until people know about it.
Mm-hmm.
One question for you, I guess. I know we don't have a ton of time to talk about this, but as much as we can dive into it, if someone were to, let's say, they wanted to help people, with their health, and they wanted to spread the message, what are some of the first actionable steps that they can take to get that ball rolling?
So first and foremost, you have to own. You gotta own it. Like you have to own your thing. I don't want to use any swear words here. So you have to really figure out what it is you offer to the marketplace, to your audience, in a way that's unique from everyone else. Especially if you're going to be doing this online. There's a lot of people in the health and wellness space. How are you different? And how are you able to articulate that in a way that the potential customer sees the benefit to them? So if you just say, hey, I'm a trainer and I help you lose weight, guess what? You're going to have a tough time attracting clients unless you're on The Biggest Loser and people see you on TV, right? So you really want to figure out your positioning, your unique value proposition, basically what it is you do, how you serve people, how they benefit. And you want to be very clear about who you're targeting. I recommend everybody, especially in the health space, go very narrow and deep. Become the expert for left knee ACL rehabilitation. It's a very small pool of fish, but leave the right knee to somebody else. It's obviously an extreme example, but I did the complete opposite. I was the generalist. I'm like, I'm going to help you improve your health and energy and lose weight. That's a very competitive marketplace. And if I knew back then what I know now, I would have probably done things a little bit differently. So it's a lot easier to become a big fish in a small pond than it is to be a big fish in a big pond. So really go narrow and deep. Focus on how you're unique and why that matters to your audience. And obviously you have to know what you're doing. You can't just put crap out there. I know a lot of people in our space who are doing multiple 8 figures off one ebook, and which is great. I know a few of those people who are not very honest or integral human beings, and that makes me sick to my stomach because they're putting crap out there that has no business, helping that many people. Or I shouldn't even use the word helping, but they're so focused on the making money of stuff that they forgot to actually produce something that's really valuable. So produce something of immense value, and then, back it up with some good marketing. So I don't know if that really answers the question, but that's just a couple things to keep in mind.
No, that totally answers the question, and I completely agree. I work with a lot of people starting e-commerce businesses, and I say the same thing. They're trying to go 9 times out of 10. They're trying to go extremely broad, and I'm like, look, you're not going to compete with Amazon. It's
No.
not going to happen. But if you happen to be, like for instance, my site is a dance clothing specific site where we offer more colors than anyone else, and it's a hard thing to compete with. We have a very specific target demographic. It's a little bit easier than, because a lot of the stuff we sell, it's like you can't really find on Amazon. So that's what I always tell people, and I think that's advice for anything you're doing in life. It's like if you're trying to go super general, you better have multi-million dollars worth of backup for marketing.
Oh,
basically.
Totally. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to keep you too long. What was the name of the podcast again that you talk more about this? Healthpreneur?
Healthpreneur. So that's, the website is healthpreneurgroup.com. And I've also got a bunch of videos on my channel on YouTube, which talk a lot about, my philosophy and just different ideas and strategies for more of the entrepreneurship and business stuff. Obviously, we cater to health entrepreneurs, but even if you're a general entrepreneur, the information is it's kind of sound across the board. So if that's, so if you're listening to this and you're a health entrepreneur, you can join us at healthpreneurgroup.com. We've got a great group on Facebook, which is where I share a lot of my golden nuggets and insights. And we do live workshops. Got some really cool stuff going on this year. So it's a lot of fun.
One last question for you, and this is more of a general question. It can be about health, it can be about entrepreneurship, but what advice do you wish you knew when you're in your 20s, or alternatively, do you wish to tell all the 20 somethings listening to this podcast?
Focus and put the blinders on.
Mm.
Just like focus on one thing, and assuming that's something that people want, just focus on that. Like it's like the dilemma for the entrepreneur is it's a dilemma and a blessing at the same time, which is this hyper creativity that we have where we're all like, oh, new idea, new idea, new idea. And that is very distracting unless you have a team of people around you who can take your ideas and run with them, allowing you to create more awesomeness. So if you're starting off, take one idea, see if you can validate it in the marketplace by creating, let's say, a couple sales. And then if you've got a proven concept, just go deep with that. Because again, I know not every business model is right for everyone, but I can tell you, I can count 5 people just off the top of my head who are running 8-figure businesses from one ebook. So not to say that you have to run that type of business, but the power of focus is undeniable versus being scattered all over the place.
That is great advice. You already mentioned a few places, but where else can people find out more about you and what you're doing?
Yeah, on the health side of things, fitness, nutrition stuff, you can check out our blog, yurilkaim.com. That's YuriElkaim. And YouTube as well. I've got like 900 videos on YouTube. So if you want to download my brain pretty much, you can just watch my videos on YouTube.
And I'll put links to all those in the show notes. But Yuri, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks, Travis.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. And if you did, make sure you hit the big red subscribe button down below. You can also check me out on Facebook and on Twitter. And I release a new video every Monday. And by hitting that subscribe button, you'll get those new videos every Monday. And this is really a podcast. It's also a website. You can check out the website. It's howtodoyour20s.com. I'll put a link right over here as well. And what it's all about is trying to improve your life. And we specifically focus on things that people in their 20s are interested in. So make sure you like the video if you liked it, subscribe, like us on Facebook and Twitter, whatever. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you again on another video.